Hi guys, my name's Subtutor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about an announcement made by Steam the other day. At time of recording it was made yesterday, by the time you guys see it it'll be last week. But ultimately the gist of this is obviously we've seen a lot of things recently about the kind of games that are allowed on Steam and the kind of content that needs to be censored and how censoring it is either right or wrong, and there's been this huge discussion about it. And now Steam, in a fairly lengthy blog post, I can't remember who actually posted it, it was Eric Johnson from Steam, made this big blog post, which I'll link down in the description there, about what Steam's stance actually is and what they've decided to do. So he starts off by just kind of running through and going, look, there are lots of things going on here, lots of things being discussed, and it's not automated. First off, it's not just, as we've seen with certain other platforms, it's not an automated thing that's just rinsing stuff out and getting upset about things. It's people who are being involved. And it's a very difficult thing to decide what should be there and what shouldn't be there, especially considering, as per my video that I did last week on Agony and the depiction of hell therein, with the context that seemed to be ignored in regards to certain things. It was stuff that now they're saying, look, there's a lot of discussions around this, and it's not always an easy thing to deal with. Then moving on, they go, look, instead of worrying too much about all of what goes into a game, we kind of want to be a place where people play what they want to play and where creators can make what they want to make. And I want to read you a couple of parts of this. So they say, where is it? So we ended up going back to one of the principles in the forefront of our minds when we started Steam, and more recently as we worked on Steam Direct to open up the store to many more developers. Valve shouldn't be the ones deciding this. If you're a player, we shouldn't be choosing for you what content you can or can't buy. If you're a developer, we shouldn't be choosing what content you're allowed to create. Those choices should be yours to make. Our role should be to provide systems and tools to support your efforts to make these choices for yourself and to help you do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable. With that principle in mind, we've decided that the right approach is to allow everything onto the Steam store except those things that we decide are illegal or straight up trolling. So just to pause there, I'll read some more of the next bit in a second. The stuff that they're talking about in regards to straight up illegal or trolling. So illegal would be like direct copyright infringement, where, as we've seen with some of the clones of Overwatch and some of the other bits and pieces that are floating around on the internet or floating around on the international market, it's a case of they have pulled out all of the content from things, maybe retextured some of it, changed some of the colours, lowered the graphical quality, and then unleashed it again onto the world. And so as a result, you would have that side of things. You'd have the stuff that's illegal, i.e. stuff that is legitimately like if there was material put into a game, not necessarily the game as a whole, but material put into a game that is restricted in some way, then potentially that would be a thing to be removed from Steam, possibly everywhere, possibly only in a specific country that allows it. Again, for instance, there are certain games that are banned in Australia especially, or in certain other countries, whereby in their version of Steam or through where those users are accessing Steam, that may not be on their version of the store. Or straight up trolling. One of the things that stands out here is, as much as there was a lot of uproar around it that I didn't feel was in any way justified, the active shooter game from a developer that has apparently been removed from Steam several times because this guy just tries to make money off outrage marketing and then never actually produces a product. that kind of thing would be what they would be looking to remove as well, where it's repeat offenders or people who aren't actually providing a product but still trying to make money. Anyway, moving on, they say then, or Eric Johnson says then, taking this approach allows us to focus less on trying to police what should be on Steam and more on building those tools to give people control over what kinds of content they see. We already have some tools, but they're too hidden and not nearly comprehensive enough. We are going to enable you to override our recommendation algorithms and hide games containing the topics you're not interested in. So if you don't want to see anime games on your store, you'll be able to make that choice. If you want more options to control exactly what kind of games your kids see when they browse the store, you'll be able to do that. And it's not just players that we need better tools that need better tools either. Developers who build controversial content shouldn't have to deal with harassment because their game exists, and will be building tools and options to support them too. Now that, to me, sounds wonderful. Now, some of you guys in comments have I believe it's Trevor Goodchild, I think, pointed out that the Agony developers at one point said content wouldn't be removed from the game, and then it was, and their decisions seemed to be very clouded in mystery in certain areas as well in regards to it. I'm still kind of annoyed in regards to Agony because even though there was a 4 GB patch the other day, the bug that's basically prevented me from continuing to play through the game that I was finding very interesting up until that point, I still can't progress from the point that I've reached. So, you know, that's a thing that hopefully, again, in regards to maybe some of the tools that Steam would be putting forward, now that they've said, look, Steam is just an open place, an open marketplace for people to present their product and for people to buy what they want to buy and play what they want to play. In which case, that removes all of the more ambiguous elements around things like uncensored patches and stuff like that being provided through Steam, which is worthwhile for people who want to play games but are easily offended, so want content removed, and then if the content has been put back in with a patch or a free piece of DLC or something like that, then that's still something that people can go and play the experience that they want to play the experience that the developer offers and all that kind of thing. But also through some of these additional tools in regards to kind of working out your specifics on what you want to see, what you don't want to see, allowing developers to lock their content, their game into a specific space so that it's only the people who are interested that are going to find it, that are going to work with it, and it's not just going to show up to everybody so that those developers don't just randomly get harassed. One thing that I would also hope to see as part of this would be a better reporting system for bugs and things where the game doesn't have a decent bug reporting mechanism for itself, because at the moment you've got a lot of bug reporting going on in the kind of Steam community forum side of things, or it linking out to websites, and some of those websites that those developers have like a contact us, but it's not a very specific bug reporting system. And I would love it if as part of these changes to the tools that we have available to us as users of Steam, be it a developer or a player, I would like to see that a kind of inbuilt system being left there for developers to receive bug reports more concisely, and for us to make them in a more effective and direct manner. Just because then as well, that also removes some of the harassment. Because let's say let's take Agony as an example. Like, I'm somewhat annoyed with the idea of censorship in the game, considering the content of the game and the context for it, as per my video last week. But in regards to the bugs and things, fine, okay, if they had to make substantial changes because they were scared, you know, I'm not saying that it was a justified reason to make changes, but if they made changes because they were scared, because they felt they needed to remove content to one extent or another to achieve what they felt they needed to, you know, I'm not going to guess at their justifications for these things in full, but if that's what happened, then I can understand the game being more buggy. However, when there have been at least one large patch that has remedied a seemingly, from other people that have been playing the game that didn't have the same problem as myself, where they've been saying that some of their problems have been cleared up. That's all very well and good, but again, me making a post on the Steam forums or sending a random message to their Facebook page or to their other social media, to their website, whatever else, it doesn't have a way necessarily for them to get back to me. And even if it does, they may not. I would love to see something in Steam that if I was saying, look, this is a bug that I've encountered, they could just tick a thing to inform me when the bug has been fixed. Yeah, especially if it's a game-killing bug like the one that I'm experiencing with Agony at the moment, where I just can't move past a certain point because the game freezes, crashes, breaks down, and stops. But then the next part is on the is addressing some of the more legal side. So he says, as we mentioned earlier, laws vary around the world, so we're going to need to handle this on a case-by-case basis. As a result, we will almost certainly continue to struggle with this one for a while. Our current thinking is that we're going to push developers to further disclose any potentially problematic content in their games during the submission process, and cease doing business with any of them that refuse to do so honestly. We'll still continue to perform technical evaluations of submissions, rejecting games that don't pass until their issues have been resolved. So, in regards to this, they're saying that they are going to add to their submission process for Steam. So even if they're opening Steam up to be a marketplace for more developers to put their products, they have their minimum technical evaluation requirements and things like that, which again, some games, just because it may very well work perfectly fine for the test machines that they're using for Steam. Yeah, that Valve and Steam have got in place for these evaluations, but you've got so many different rigs, so many different configurations in terms of systems and whatever else around the world that it will not work necessarily uniformly for everybody. But then on top of that, they're saying we want to add to that more of a content and context based submission process, so that we know what's in your game and how we can handle it. Because then if they've been told, say you've got a game like Manhunt that I believe is still banned in Australia, you put out the information to Steam and Steam goes, right, well, at submission this game is fine for 70% of the countries that we provide access to. But those other 30% we're going to have to limit, and we're going to have to remove you from their instances of the Steam store. There you go. And as long as, and again, they're going, you need to be honest with us. You need to work with us here, because if you're going to be dishonest, or if you're not going to tell us the truth about various aspects, or if you're just going to omit information, then that puts us in a precarious situation. It puts you in a precarious situation. It makes the players uneasy, and potentially puts them in a precarious situation as owning illegal material. And so as a result, we wouldn't do business with those individuals that aren't at least willing to tell us the truth. And that all seems perfectly reasonable to me. This to be fair, is one of the things... I was one of these people that when Steam first came out as a thing, and it was more about protecting DRM and whatever else, and like being online all the time, when it came out with kind of Sin Episodes Emergence and Half-Life 2 and all of that stuff, when that came out, I was one of the people that was like, no, this isn't, it's not free enough, it's not open enough, and it really caused me a problem, because at the time I didn't really have kind of ready and ongoing access to the internet. So when it was asking for always online verification of and being logged in so that I could play my games or access my library, I didn't really have access to that, and that was really annoying to me until they added the offline mode shortly afterwards. But even then it was clunky, because it was a new kind of rushed addition to try and placate people. But then Steam has been one of these a platform that has done a really good job of growing, adapting, expanding, and the attitude that they've taken to this seems to kind of continue to show that off. But then he goes on to expand on it by saying, so what does this mean? It means the Steam store is going to contain something that you hate and didn't think should exist. Unless you don't have any opinions, that's guaranteed to happen. But you're also going to see something on the store that you believe should be there, and some other people will hate it and want it not to exist. Excuse me. It also means that the games we allow onto the store will not be a reflection of Valve's values beyond a simple belief that you should all have the right to create and consume the content you choose. The 2 points above apply to all of us at Valve as well. If you see something on Steam that you think shouldn't exist, it's almost certain that someone at Valve is right there with you. To be explicit about that, if we allow your game onto Steam, or onto the store, sorry, it doesn't mean we approve or agree with anything you're trying to say with it. If you're a developer of offensive games, this isn't us siding with you or against all the people you're offending. There will be people throughout the Steam community who hate your games and hope you fail to find an audience, and there will be people here at Valve who feel exactly the same way. However, offending someone shouldn't take away your game's voice. We believe you should be able to express yourself like everyone else, and to find others who want to play your game, but that's it. In the short term, we won't be making any significant changes to what's arriving on Steam until we've finished some of the tools we've described in this post. As we've hopefully managed to convey, navigating these issues is messy and complicated. Countries and societies change their laws and cultural norms all the time. We'll be working on this for the foreseeable future, both in terms of what products we're allowing, what guidelines we communicate, and the tools we're providing to developers and players. And that's it. And in closing, with that all spelled out, this is possibly the most refreshing kind of update, blog post, article, whatever, clarifying a large platform's interests and intentions that I have seen in fucking years. Yeah, we compare this to some of the tripe that we've seen from YouTube in regards to their platform, or that we've seen in regards to certain other platforms, like Microsoft with its store and how terrible it is, EA with Origin and how clunky that is, the mess that is Uplay, all of the arguments, discussions, and other things that are made apparent around all of these other comparable and incomparable platforms, and the way that they have just handled their community and the way that they have stated things. This is just so refreshing. And even we'll obviously have to see how this actually pans out in actuality, where the way that it's actioned, the tools that they put together and how they'll work. But in regards to just what they plan to do and the attitude that they have taken to the situation that they are that they have decided to take and that is going on, round of applause to Eric Johnson and the guys at Steam for putting this forward as they have. As said, if this comes about in the way that's been suggested, with more new tools first, then full openness because we'll have the tools in place, then I can completely understand that. I completely agree with the way of doing that. But the other thing that stands out is, so an offensive game that's just a porn game, yeah, or a game that has nudity in it, or whatever else that isn't kind of adult only rated and therefore not necessarily a direct porn game, but one that has a lot of nudity, a lot of suggestive material in it, that can now potentially find its home on Steam and be completely happy there and not have to worry about it. But then other games, like for instance the active shooter game that was reported on a lot, that had lots of people flipping out, if another game of a similar sort that was actually a proper product, and not just a guy potentially trying to make money off Steam through outrage marketing without producing a product, that game was basically an asymmetrical shooter including a hide and seek mode. And you could dress that up however you wanted, because those games have been done to death by this point. And as a result, that wasn't really a game I necessarily felt needed to be made in terms of the context of the situation, but in terms of the game itself and the way that it was put forward, a couple of tweaks would have made that a perfectly fine game. That even though it probably still would have outraged people, you know, it being on Steam would have been perfectly fine, even though I probably would have never played it and wouldn't have been interested in it due to the themes and the other bits and pieces in the game. But now, if there were people that were interested in it, if it looked like something that they would want to get in on, even if it was just a game that they played for a little bit just to say they did and then moved on from, it's still a case of that kind of game. Even if Steam's staff disagree with that game and the message it's sending, if there is a message to that kind of game, what they are doing is saying that it will have a place on Steam as long as it's not horribly illegal and as long as it's not, as long as it's an actual product with an actual thing to put forward. So it's you've got a lot of substantial stuff and a lot of interesting stuff that can potentially come out of this. I'm looking forward to seeing how this cascades. I'm hoping that the tools don't take these guys too long to put together so that we can actually see the changes that they're talking about. But otherwise, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this, because obviously they're addressing the Steam community, and I'm guessing that a fair number of you guys, at the very least, whether you're here for the coaching videos, whether you're here for the gaming videos, whether you're here for both, a fair number of you, I would imagine, use Steam to one extent or another. It is where most of my gaming library that is not in physical copy exists. And so as a result, I would imagine that's the same for the majority of people these days, considering how prevalent Steam has been. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this statement and what it could entail. Are you one of the people who feels that Steam should be very well policed and it shouldn't be an open market of ideas and things that people want to find? Or are you happy and want to celebrate the fact that Steam has now made this very clear, and even though they aren't opening up everything in full for a while, just because they want the tools in place first, which I feel is completely reasonable and understandable. Are you looking forward to seeing the breadth of content and material that we might be able to see as a result of this, as Steam just being opened up to all of these different kinds of content? I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys, but otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.